peoples. Again, heartiest thanks and warm greetings from Shundip Sharkar, son of Ma and Vole Shankara, a guide from the ultimate code of the Nemesis, showing you light to knowing what you should do and how. Most importantly, what should be the basis of the realization of your mistakes and how should transform your behavioral responses and reactions accordingly towards perfecting your very self, towards gaining that height of recognition, towards fulfilling that endeared desire of your heart in this present birth. So guys, today, this morning, the topic of astralization, as promised, is going to be the analysis of the remedies as far as the 9th house in a particular natal chart is going to be concerned. So first of all, you will have to, let's dive into the 9th house deeply at first. What is 9th house? 9th house is the house of the religion. By the term religion, I am not referring to being Hindu or Muslims or Christians. Here, I am referring to the awareness of the do's and the don'ts, the path of righteousness. And 8th house is the house of the in-laws. It is also the 12th house from the 9th house. So 8th house indicates the loss of that sense of righteousness, loss of that awareness of the do's and the don'ts. Hence, 8th house is never considered a good house as being 12th from the 9th. But the fact is never like that. Here I would like to include an assertion from Lord Vishnu, the ultimate creator of this multiverse, is that whenever a person gets distracted from the path of righteousness, losing that ultimate awareness, ultimate sense of the do's and the don'ts, he gets moving forward to destruction, ultimately ending up in death. And in the ultimate court of the Nemesis, Lord Shiva, my father, has assigned me the duty to spreading this message of the sense of the do's and the don'ts, the path of righteousness involved in marriage or should be followed after marriage. But here you will have to understand that this is a general analysis of the remedy in terms of advice. And the specific version of it will of course vary according to natal charts, according to particular natal charts. So let's understand this topic very clearly to get into the insight of the advice of remedies through bringing about transformation in your behavioral responses and reactions towards this world of Maya you are existing in. So 9th house is the house of your sense of responsibilities towards your inheritance, is the house as it is the house of your father. And 8th house is the house of the in-laws. And the 7th house, the house of the spouse, belongs to the 8th house, the house of your in-laws. And the family of your in-laws, I mean to say the 8th house, being second from the 7th house, your spouse is the reason of happiness, is the reason of endowment and growth of the family of your in-laws. So your 7th house is the 7th house in your natal chart, that is your spouse is the reason of endowment and growth and happiness of the 8th house in your natal chart or the family of your in-laws. Now that endowment or happiness of the 8th house is getting subtracted in the 12th house, that is the 7th house, to turn into your spouse, to turn into the reason of your own happiness, own endowment and your own growth. That is the concept of real marriage. So through this analysis of the 8th house, 7th house, 8th house and 9th house, it has already become clear to you that as the endowment and the growth and the happiness of the 8th house is getting subtracted to endow you, to make you grow in the form of your spouse in the 7th house, so your sense of responsibilities, your sense of the do's and the don'ts should also have to get subtracted to a very extent from the 9th house, from the house of your inheritance, to that one, to the one into the 8th house, most especially to the ones into the 7th house, that is to your spouse. And again, you will have to understand that 7th house is the house of the illusory representation of situations which will center around you regarding your responsibilities towards your spouse after your marriage. After your marriage, and those illusory representation of situations are presented in front of you in such a way to making you understand or making you aware of the mistakes that you had kept on committing through cycle of previous births, through your behavioral responses and reactions to your spouse, and thus enabling you to transforming the same to your spouse for the very purpose of rectifying your very self towards attaining that ultimate bliss in the midst of abundance that Mother Earth has been offering for all of her children. It is as simple as that. Now again understand that 7th house, from 7th house is the first house. First house is your very self, is your basic characteristic traits, is your very personality. So after marriage, your very self and the world around you will be your spouse, and all your sense of responsibilities involving the do's and the don'ts should have to center around your responsibilities towards your spouse, towards the marital oaths for your spouse taken at the time of your marriage. Now let's understand this very concept from a different perspective of another house. 7th house is, do you remember that 7th house, no sorry, 9th house is 7th from the 3rd house. 9th house is 3rd from the 9th house is 7th from the 3rd house, and 7th house 9th house, just putting in front of you very clearly that 9th house, the 3rd house is 7th from the 9th house, and 9th house is 7th from the 3rd house. So 9th house being 7th, so the 3rd house signifying the society or the surrounding you are existing in. 3rd house, the society or the surrounding you are existing in, being the 7th house from the 9th house, symbolizes the fact that your behavioral responses or reactions towards attaining or valuing and respecting the verdict rewarding you the gift of skills in the 9th house will turn into your society, will turn into your society, into the world of Maya, into your spouse. And again, as ninth house is seventh from the third, so your behavioral responses, your behavioral reactions towards this world of Maya, towards your spouse, will turn into your product in the ninth house. It is as simple as this. Such is the magnificence of your behavioral responses and reactions. And again, as eighth house is 12th from the ninth house, and as eighth house is, and seventh house, the house of the spouse, is 12th from the eighth house, and eighth house, as I have told you earlier, is the DG locker reserved for you in, is the DG locker of products reserved for you in the ultimate court of the nemesis. So a good portion of it, good portion of your reward to your product gets subtracted to turn into your spouse in the seventh house. So your behavioral responses, your reactions to your spouse, is your very self, is your basic characteristic traits, is your rewards present in the ninth house on the basis of your product. It is as simple as this. So I think you have got my point very clearly. Once more, just to make this clear once more, because it is very important, significant as far as your behavioral responses and reactions are concerned, that ninth house is, sorry, third house is seventh from the ninth, and ninth house is seventh from the third. So third house symbolizes society and surrounding you are existing in, and ninth house is the reward to your product. So third house is seventh from the ninth. That symbolizes that your behavioral responses and reactions towards the gift of your reward present in the ninth house will transform into the world of Maya, will transform into the society for you, will transform into the spouse for you. And again, the ninth house being seventh from the third, your behavioral reactions and responses towards this world of Maya, towards the society you are existing in, or towards your spouse, will turn into your reward for your next birth in the ninth house, or for your present birth in the ninth house. And eighth house being 12th, seventh house being 12th from the 8th, and 8th house being the digilocker of the products reserved for you in the ultimate code of the nemesis. So a good portion of the reward to your product will get subtracted to turn into your spouse in the 7th house. So your basic personality, your world, everything is your spouse in the 7th house, and your reward in the 9th house. So such is the magnificence of your behavioral responses and reactions towards your marital oaths taken at the time of your marriage for your very spouse. So taken at the time of your marriage for your very spouse. So your justified and rectified behavioral responses and reactions towards your spouse can work magically, can work wonders in terms of letting you earn the height of recognition that you are wanting to achieve, that you are enduring in your heart for a very long period of time. So go back to the right track, get back to the right track. Do not spend $1,000 for real gemstones, because it will not work. Because the only thing that can work wonders for you is your behavioral, is your tender, caring and loving and romantic behavioral expressions, reactions and responses towards your spouse, providing him or her with the protection of love, making her happy, can only work wonders for you, can only erase all kinds of hindrances and challenges from your road. Like mist, quite magically. This is the real fact. Again, you'll have to understand that ninth house is that's ninth house is third from the seventh, so seventh house is the house of the spouse. So if your spouse is the reward to your luck, so you will have to show bravery, courage and effort towards reaching to that reward of your product in the form of your spouse. So all your sense of responsibilities, all the awareness, all the the path of righteousness with the awareness of the do's and the don'ts should have to center around your spouse, around your first girlfriend. You'll be, if it requires to go against your father, if it requires to go against the religion, if it requires to go against the social norms or whatever it may takes, you should have to be ready to doing that. Because destiny is asking you to do that depending on natural chores, and hence you will find in love stories involving thrills and fights of such sort getting more IMDb ratings, because every single living being in this mother nature understand, quite unknowingly understand this very fact, this power of love to our spouse. The fact is very simple as this, and here you will have to understand that your spouse is real, but her actions, his or her actions or the reactions to your dislikes hitting your temperament are not real. They are surreal, they are illusory, presented only to test, presented only to test and thus rectify your behavioral responses, reactions to your spouse, for perfecting your very self, so that you may also be able to attain the material bliss that Mother Earth has in offer for all of her children. It is as simple as this. So what you will have to do, you have to see the reality through the illusory representation of situations. You will have to see removing the black curtain from your present before your very eyeballs. You will have to cut the illusion with illusion. So stop reacting instantly. Just see the reality, removing the black curtain present before your eyeball, cutting the illusory representation of situations and seeing the reality through it, and then understand and react accordingly. Now, why do you require advice? You will require advice because you won't be able to understand which situations are really illusory or which situations are real. So to discern between the situations, you will have to understand the reward, you will have to understand your product, quite even from your natal chart, and with that understanding you will be able to transform your behavioral reactions, responses accordingly. And this guide from the ultimate code of the nemesis can do that very easily within a minute, to showing you light to knowing what you should do and how, transforming your behavioral responses and reactions, and thus enabling you to gain that ultimate height of recognition. Here I'll also like to include the reference of the 12th house that I have already mentioned in my another video describing the significance of the 9th house. If you have not heard of it, just for you, 12th house is 4th house from the 9th house. 4th house is the happiness, is the house symbolizing our happiness. So we'll have to understand the reward to our product. We'll have to understand our luck, that is our spouse. Transforming our behavioral responses and reactions to our spouse, to those mingled with love, emotions, care, tenderness, and the honest reflection of the same in our consequent behavioral reactions and responses to our spouse, making her happy, making him or her happy, and thus making us becoming happy, will lead you to the road gaining ultimate freedom, the moksha, the bliss of material abundance, with freedom. So, to attain moksha, you won't have to take sannyas. You won't have to grow your beard to such extent. You can do that loving your spouse. You can do that very easily staying with your spouse. It is simple as this, and that is the message from the ultimate code of the nemesis that I had to deliver through this video, and I think I have done that, and for this reason thank you Ma very much, and I'm sorry. Sorry, Voli Shankara, my father, Baba. Thank you Ma. And thanks to all of you for listening to me on my Astrology YouTube channel. I think and if this video has been of any kind of help in reaching your insight, do hit the subscribe button and like button, and do consider, and the number being displayed on the screen is for WhatsApping an appointment. Don't make any kind of calls or text, and you should have to wait for the huge rush, because there are no other options for that. And you may also consider visiting my website at www.astrology.com for booking an appointment also, and on that website you will also find whatever I've told you in that video in written formats with image based description for your better understanding into whatever I'm telling you to understand. So it is very simple as this. Again, thank you Ma, and I'm sorry. Thank you.